The Orlando Sentinel with a great investigation and report into Florida's school voucher program. Now, reporters Beth Cassab, Leslie Postal, and Annie Martin recently published a three-part Schools Without Rules expose on Florida's nearly $1 billion tax credit scholarship program. Again, that takes our tax money and basically puts it in a school voucher for people to go to school. Now, again, the problem with that is that it takes money from public schools to go and put it towards private schools. Now, that program now serves about 140,000 students at nearly 2,000 private schools. Now, many of those schools, they point out, that are subject to little state oversight and are heavily reliant on these state scholarship programs to keep their doors open. Now, the investigators, what they did is that they visited more than 30 of these private schools in Orange County, Seminole, Lake, Osceola, and Brevard counties. Now, they also reviewed thousands of pages of public records, and they interviewed dozens of parents, private school operators, and state officials, as well as policy experts. Now, they found some really disastrous findings. And to be honest, I think it would be surprising for a lot of people, but not so surprising for those who understand the dangers of privatization and what that actually means. Now, they found that because of lack of regulation, some students had hired teachers without college degrees, held classes in aging strip malls, and had even falsified fire safety and health records. Now, the full report, I'm going to put it in the description of this video. I definitely suggest that you read it. Highlights all of these different things and how they could actually do this with such little regulation. Now, some of these schools these classrooms were incredibly dangerous. The Sentinel found scholarship students in the same office building as Who's Next Bail Bonds, a Colonial Drive daycare center, and a school near Winter Park that was facing eviction and had wires dangling from a gap in the office ceiling, and a library with no books, computers, or furniture. I believe there was also classrooms had in a building that was facing that was actually condemned. Oh, what a disaster. That's what some of your private school voucher money is going to. That is taxpayer money that could have actually went to public schools. Now, at least 19 schools submitted documents since 2012 that also misled state officials about fire or health inspections, including some with forged inspectors' names or altered dates. 8 of the schools still received scholarship money with the state's blessing. So that is, like I said, incredibly dangerous and against the law. Why would you ever put a kid in that kind of school? Well, you wouldn't only do that. Any parent, you ask any parent, they're like, "Oh my God, this is horrific." No, this is why these schools had to lie, because they still wanted to get that sweet, sweet scholarship money, and that's also the kind of condition that leads to that deregulation ends up leading to. Now, if that's not bad enough, some of the cases even get more disturbing. Now, Samuel Vidal, who ran one of the private Christian schools in Brevard with his wife, shut down his campus last year after a student told police that he had lifted the shirt of a 15-year-old student and put his mouth on her breast. Whoa, man. So this guy had a school, so-called Christian, with a so-called Christian school, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to put my mouth in her boob." What a disgusting pervert. This person is obviously underage as well. So now that did, surprisingly, that did not stop Vidal from winning approval from the Florida Department of Education to open a new private school in Palm Bay and collect nearly $200,000 in state-backed scholarships. So he gets caught doing that, or accused of doing that. They close the school down. He doesn't get the scholarships anymore. So he just goes and opens a new one. That's insane. And even after, it gets worse, even after Vidal was charged with felony lewd or lascivious molestation, prompting state officials to pull scholarships from the second school, it approved yet another school this year with ties to Vidal. So that's more taxpayer money going to enrich the family of a pervert. pedophile. Damn, dude, that is disgusting. And again, unfortunately, thanks to lax regulations, the Florida government can't do a lot about it. Now, that's despite massive complaints by a lot of parents who had went to these schools. According to the report, a parent in Bradenton was upset that a school assigned her 8th grader an elementary level worksheet on clocks and telling time. Another was angry at a North Florida school, or was angry when a North Florida school made students clean toilets as punishment. Hey, Newt Gingrich, that's they actually took your idea. A Jacksonville mother also wrote that her son's education was neglected. She said, "They were paid $10,316 for my son's tuition, and I have nothing to show for it," she told the State. In every case, the education department responded that there was nothing it could do about a private school's academic choices. Now, to be fair, on a lot of these cases, they decided, okay, we'll pull your scholarship funding, but other than that, they really can't do anything. So, hey, you love free markets? There's your free market. That's what happens. Now, do you think unregulated for-profit schools will do better than public schools, which do have problems? Well, turns out most of these, about 78% of them, are religious schools. So already, that seems to be a bit of an issue. Now, to be fair, some private religious schools actually do give a good education. But a lot of the times, it turns out their results are subpar. And we learned that in Michigan with Betsy DeVos is now our education secretary, her push to privatize schools here in Michigan. Now, they found that more than 70 schools in Florida of about 280 studies showed declines in students' math or reading skills. And there was a separate study released last month by the Urban Institute, found that the tax credit program increased the rate at which students go on to enroll community college by about 15%, though the authors said that those results were tempered because the scholarships did little to boost the likelihoods students actually earned a degree. So again, not a lot of great results. Now, am I against private schools completely? No, absolutely not. Am I against private schools receiving government money in the form of vouchers? Yes, I am against that. Now, I know some of you who are, advocates for what they call school choice. And you're going to say, well, but Jeff, why are you punishing poor minority students and keeping them from accessing better schools? These vouchers will allow you to choose your own school. So people who are in the worst neighborhoods that don't have good schools, well, they can choose a quality school, right? Well, again, first off, a lot of studies show that these are not better schools. And number two, calling out private schools and their failings doesn't ignore the problems inherent in public schools. Now, the biggest problem in public schools is the funding model. Now, public schools, they rely on property taxes, right? Now, if you're in a poorer area, obviously there's less revenue generated from property taxes. So those schools actually get a lot less revenue. When they have a lot less revenue, they can't hire good teachers, and they can't properly, make sure that they have enough books and supplies for those students. They can't get up-to-date computers and programs, and they can't run any sort of extracurricular programs to help students. So African Americans are at a huge disadvantage thanks to that funding model. But privatization of schools and taking more money out of those public schools and putting them into private schools it's not the answer to what I consider to be racist school funding practices. Again, as these poor minority schools, well, like I said, I just said that they're primarily minority schools. So they're a lot poorer because they're in minority areas. And of course, that has a lot to do with racist zoning practices as well. And so if you fix the funding, then that seems to be a good answer, and make it so that it's not just dependent on property taxes in the area. You devise a new funding model that makes sure that every school gets the adequate funding that they deserve so that anybody can get access to a quality education at a school that is both properly funded and regulated by the government. Now, a lot of these private schools, unfortunately, are, as I mentioned, unregulated. And if they took away these scholarships, as they call them, these school vouchers, then these same schools wouldn't be able to operate. Now, instead, what we're doing under Betsy DeVos is taking that funding, more of that funding away, putting into private companies with little to no oversight and profit motives that shift the focus away from actually educating children into basically padding their own bottom lines. And that is something that I will never get behind. And that's why private schools are fundamentally, at least publicly financed private schools, are fundamentally wrong. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.